Yo,
What's up, Jirard?
what's up, Barry? We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
How you been?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Jirard.
I wasn't expecting to come back so soon.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that you came by to talk about Metroids and stuff.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
It's because I watched your review of Metroid Samus Returns and was like, if there's anyone that I can talk to about this game, it's gonna be Jirard.
Yeah, man.
Who's played this game more than probably the people that made it.
At least at the time that it wasn't released. I'm sure people now have become the speedrunning.
Well, that's what was amazing watching your video, how you're like, oh, and then you came up with this theory that it had different endings depending on the mode, depending on how fast you beat it, and you did all that before the game came out.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
thank you. It was the scariest bet I've ever made with myself, because usually when I do a video on a game that's about to come out or something, I'll have more information, but
right.
I had no clue.
Have they ever done that before, where the different difficulties have different little bonuses at the end?
Not as crazy as that.
Yeah.
Not as as
so many
intricate.
different permutations.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, if you, I mean, it's been since the first Metroid, if you beat the game within a certain time limit, you get a different version of Samus at the end.
Yeah.
But Samus Returns has 3 different modes.
Yes.
There's the normal mode, the hard mode, and the fusion mode, which is locked behind an amiibo, which people are really upset about.
The fusion mode is harder than hard mode.
And hard mode is already dumb.
Yeah.
I died a lot in normal mode, and Metroid's not a game I usually die a lot in.
Yeah.
Besides maybe a couple boss fights.
Yeah.
But this game is filled with boss fights.
Yeah. By the way, guys, this is the G-Cast. What's up?
G Club.
G Club.
And I'm Barry. This is Jirard.
I'm Jirard. Barry Jirard.
The completer.
The completer man.
Completerman.
The completer man.
And you completed the shit out of Metroid Samus Returns. Brand new game, Nintendo 3DS.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous game. I recommend it. I had a good time.
Yeah. Well, today's topic is mostly about the idea of Metroidvania and kind of where...
I think we're going to start by talking about Samus Returns and kind of branch
out from there. Yeah.
Into the other Metroidvania verse.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll try to stay mostly spoiler free.
Yeah, I think so. Or if we do, we'll say,
let you know.
Spoilers, it's coming.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Samus is a grill. How can Metroid crawl?
Oh man, that photo is my. I think
the Miiverse post.
I printed it out and framed it above my wall for a good 6 months as a reminder of how I should talk about games. Like if I ever get to that point where I say, why can't Metroid crawl?
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Put me down.
It's a good question though.
It's true.
How can Metroid crawl? So did you ever play the original Metroid 2 on the Game Boy?
No, I didn't.
I don't know if you ever talked about it in your review.
No. So okay. I went into this completely blind. Yeah. When AM2R came out, the devs were very passionate about the game, and one of the devs who worked on it was like, hey, here, you should play this. Mm-hmm. And I played about 2 hours worth, and I stopped. Not because I got bored, not because I didn't want to play it, but because I was doing so many other things, and I told myself, this game deserves all my attention when I can give it my attention. And I never did. And then when they announced Samus Returns, that's when I was like, okay, now's the time. And so I played through AM2R, walked away really liking it. And then when I picked up Samus Returns, while very familiar in sense and style, to me, they felt like apples and oranges.
Right.
Mario and Sonic almost, just they felt the same game, obviously same concept, but the level design, execution,
just different approaches to the same idea.
Yes,
it's like they're given the same printout summary of the first game and then made different games.
Yeah, it was almost like seeing a game jam, right? Like
that's an interesting way of looking at it.
If you're okay,
it's a Metroid 2 game jam.
Yeah, everyone gets together and you say, hey, your theme is Metroid, make a game, and has to have 40 Metroids to be dead in the right. journey of it.
And this is what they look like.
They look like. Go. And I think that's how I felt. So when I played both games, I had such a love and appreciation of both of them. But Samus Returns has a lot going for it. There's a lot going against it too. And I felt like, thinking about it now in my video, I was very I didn't pull any punches, but there's a lot of Super Metroid in Metroid 2.
Even the soundtrack.
Yes, almost all of the soundtrack is Super Metroid inspired, which is fine, but it was a very interesting choice. Just how
they were like, this is the
it.
one you have nostalgia for, not the one we're basing this game off.
Yeah,
of. The one over here, the really shiny one. Mm-hmm. I only played a little bit of Metroid 2 because I got it, I think, for free as some like Club Nintendo reward. Some like I used some points and got a Game Boy game on my DS kind of deal. And I played it for maybe half an hour and gave up. Because even as someone who grew up with the Game Boy, it's very hard to go back. Like, I didn't grow up with an NES or a Super Nintendo. I grew up with a Game Boy. That was like my first real gaming system. So that's what I really am familiar with. But only the exact games that I played. If I play any other Game Boy game, I'm like, oh, like I played a lot of Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. I didn't own Mario Land 1. So even playing Mario Land 1, I'm just like, Mario's like 4 pixels tall. And the question mark blocks are like these ugly little...
You're throwing marbles, not fireballs.
Yeah, just everything about this feels wrong.
You're in Egypt at some point.
Like it's nostalgic, sure, but it's really hard to go back to a lot of those games. Even the games that I loved.
Whereas if you played 6 golden coins, you're like, oh man, we're inside a giant Mario. We're inside a pumpkin spooky house.
There's pigs shooting cannons out of their noses, and Mario looks like Mario.
And Wario is here, and he's not. He's like bigger, scarier Mario.
Wario was terrifying in that
Terrifying.
game.
Wow.
So much detail.
Yeah. A lot of his sprites. Oh my goodness. They didn't seem evil so much as they seemed very large.
He was like demented. He was like it was like some Ghibli nightmare of some like overinflated man who was cursed. But so I played a little bit of Metroid 2, and I don't even think I got to the first Metroid, if I'm being honest. Like there's no map. It's really tight. You can see like 3 Samuses worth in every direction. Like it's very hard to navigate, and I think maybe that was part of the point, was that it was this like stressful, claustrophobic thing, but it was really hard to get into.
Now, did you play the original Metroid?
Only sparingly. Zero Mission is the closest I've gotten to actually playing the first Metroid.
Yeah, that was the same for me. So I
love Zero Mission.
Zero Mission to me,
that might be my favorite Metroid.
In my regards, Zero Mission is 10 times better than the original Metroid.
Oh yeah,
it's does everything that I wanted the original Metroid to do, and going back and playing the first Metroid is really tough. It feels very unimportant. It feels like, okay, you got a missile, you have some lives. It's like in Mario, right? You don't have lives, you just run, you jump, and you're very expendable. Metroid feels like you're expendable the whole time, but you don't really have a sense of progression. You're just kind of running around and going to this place and that place, and this missile might do this. I don't know. Is it a pixel? Is it a block? Is it a part of the atmosphere?
Right, because there's nothing in the game.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's just bare. Like all you have is an enemy that shows up every now and then. No backgrounds to indicate where you are. Just black space and the doors. And you can jump up and power-ups do some things, but you don't know which power-up does what, how to use them. And so it's not as crystal clearly laid out. Not that we need a tutorial, right? But it's like NES games are. It's how they were back in the day.
You were supposed to read the manual and get a lot of information on all the enemies and what they were called, because that's really useful information.
Yeah.
And then you were just left to the wind to just figure out what the hell you were doing.
Yeah.
And then Super Metroid came out and was like, oh, this is what Metroid is.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
I think... I don't know if anyone's really said this, and I'm sure that's like the vibe of it, but I really feel Super Metroid is just a reboot of the first game from a much clearer perspective, where obviously we're not visiting, we have the beginning of Super Metroid, you walk through the entire end sequence of Metroid 1.
Right.
And, spoilers Super Metroid, but like you almost leave the same way. So it's like this essence of full circleness and revisiting atmospheres, and really... The backtracking style of Metroid really kind of came super prominent in Super Metroid, whereas 1 was a bit more linear, kind of, and 2 was, for me, I didn't play the original, but I think the idea was you just really had to pay attention to where you were going at all times to really go in the direction that you wanted to go.
My understanding is that 2 was very linear, and that's where AM2R and Samus Returns get their inspiration from, where there's like lava that literally recedes once you kill the Metroids, which lets you access the next area.
Yeah.
Which is not a thing in Metroid 1 or in Super Metroid where you're getting abilities that let you expand the map in all directions.
Yeah.
This is much more like, here is the tunnel that you're boring your way through. And yeah, I never played AM2R, and I never really played that much of Metroid 2. Oh, I was gonna say something else that, like, I think it's really, as an aside, I think it's really interesting that Nintendo went really weird with all the sequels to these franchises. Like Mario Land 2, at least the American version, Doki Doki Panic, whatever, was like very, very different from Mario 1. Zelda 2, very, very different from Zelda 1. Metroid 2, kind of similar, but a little bit different, a little bit weirder. And then with the third entries in all of these series, they kind of went back to the roots of what that franchise was all about and made like a better version of the first game.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's sacrilege to say, but I think Mario Bros. 3 is way better than Mario Bros. 1.
I'm with you on that.
I think maybe a lot of people would agree with that.
I think Super Mario Brothers 3 definitively is like
it's like the Mario
that everyone was like, whoa.
Like Mario 1 is more iconic visually.
Yes.
But I think Mario 3
musically too, right?
Right, it's sort of established. I mean, it's the same thing with Metroid 1 and with Zelda 1. Like, it's sort of established all of these ideas. The sequel, they're like, let's throw everything out and just go fresh and try something new. And the third one is like, what worked about that first game? So then you get Link to the Past, you get Super Metroid, you get Mario Bros. 3, and then like later Mario World. I don't know. I think that's just an interesting perspective that that Nintendo had, where nothing was precious to them. They were like, yeah, okay, you think Zelda's this? No, it's a side scroller, and you have to like poke him in the knees now. And I don't know. It's very bold, especially in today's franchise dominant world where everything's the same thing over and over.
What's kind of crazy is that Metroid has kind of been a Western game for Western audiences.
Yeah.
It's never really been popular in Japan.
That was news to me when I learned that.
Yeah, like it's never really been a thing that Japanese people really enjoyed back in the day, at least. And so, like, Metroid is the Western franchise for Nintendo. It is designed for us. We are the ones that have kind of embraced what it is, and you know, we've always fallen in love with Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime and Zero Mission, and we've always been like, man, these games are really fun. They're difficult. They're large. They feel large.
They're oppressive and eerie, and you're alone.
They're not holding your hand.
Right. There's not little bubbly NPCs telling you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's up to you to kind of determine the essence of the journey. Also,
the obvious references to like Alien and those Western sci-fi tropes.
Which is why it's so important. You know, I get criticized a lot, especially for my opinions of Samus Returns, because in a public setting, at least, right, with social media and whatnot.
Right.
But the two things I kept seeing a lot, which was interesting for me to think about, was one is I got criticized because I said that Nintendo had good reason to shut down AM2R, and
they do. It's their copyright.
Right. Well, so Nintendo, obviously, with Pokemon Company, right? They were like shut down the Pokemon Uranium last year or 2 years ago.
They've been very consistent about shutting down fan projects. Right, that's one thing you can look to.
Sure, and it sucks that happens, and it really, really bums me out that it has to happen. But at the same time, it's their right to do that. But more importantly, it's like you kind of wish they took the Sonic Mania approach, right? Where Nintendo said, hey, come make this thing for us. But in the case of Samus Returns, this was a game they were already working on to remake. And so that to me makes the most sense in regards to taking down a C&D, a fan game that on the 30th anniversary of Metroid is out and free and trending and getting downloads and becoming the spread of the wildfire when you are 9 months away from announcing that you are coming out with the same game.
Right, because obviously they were already in development on Samus Returns when AM2R came out.
Absolutely.
They were well into development.
If it wasn't Samus Returns and it was something else, I don't think the C&D would have been a little more unjustly, or wouldn't have been as focused as it became.
Yeah.
But whereas literally this was Nintendo is saying, we are making a remake of Metroid 2. That's what we're making.
Right.
And everyone out there is very upset. But I think the key to it, and the most important thing as a community, as the gaming community should look at it, is the support that the AM2R devs gave Nintendo. They were like, yeah, we got shut down because we wanted to see another Metroid game. and they're making another Metroid game, the one that we were going to make. This is good for the Metroid community. And the second thing that I got reamed for, and to kind of go along with that, is it's important to show Nintendo that you want to support this franchise.
But yeah. People were mad about that?
People were mad because, I'm very much the kind of guy that's like, if you like Mario and you want to keep seeing good Mario games, you should buy Mario games. Even the ones that may not be the ones for you. Maybe a little more divisive. If you were telling the company, I don't like this game with the sales, then that's fine, but just know that they're going to take that into consideration. Like, look, Metroid Other M is a prime example. Metroid Other M was
or Federation Force.
Even worse. I think that game only sold 100,000 copies total. And it was not good in the US. I think it was barely a couple, maybe 20 or 30,000 copies. Yeah. So, and I could be totally wrong, but
it was very, very low. And also it had zero buzz, marketing or otherwise. I missed when it came out because even Nintendo was just kind of we don't know what we're doing.
Well, I think what happens is it's kind of the same thing happened with Capcom and MVCI, right? It's the company's excited to talk about the game, they release it, and then the company, with social media and everything going on, they now have the ability to assess the room.
Right.
So they're going to look around and go, oh, no one likes this. Well, let's shift our marketing budget. We're not going to save this tank. Let's just try and support it as best we can.
Because either you double down and try to save what you have.
You commit.
Or you just move on to the next thing.
Or you move on to the next thing. And
you are right. I agree with you and I disagree with you. That I'm someone who bought Paper Mario Color Splash because I want another 1,000-year door.
Sure. Did you not like Color Splash?
I did not like Color Splash.
See, I loved Color Splash.
I didn't think there was any point to anything I did. It was Sticker Star 2.
Sure.
I guess if you like that, then that's fine.
Well, see, I didn't play Sticker Star though. To me, I thought it was
Sticker Star was an exercise in futility. It is the Waiting for Godot of video games.
Sure.
It is such a nightmare of nothing and nothing matters.
See but Color Splash though has, I don't know, there's just, I feel like Color Splash had a lot of the love and the care and the heart that was missing from Sticker Star.
Yeah.
And while it doesn't, I think the tale of the hardware and the success of the Wii U, I think is what is reflective of some of the decisions in Color Splash. But aesthetically, I thought it was super awesome. I loved the music. I thought the writing was really good.
Graphically, aesthetically, the writing was hilarious. I agree on all those points. The game felt like a waste of time.
Sure.
It felt like the same problem that Sticker Star had where, you need this real world item in order to beat this boss. And if you don't have it, you're shit out of luck.
I think that was a really bad, I think I talked about it in my video, if I remember, having that specific item, fighting bosses and not knowing what to use, not having the correct item, and forcing the game over out of the player to then learn what to do without any indication is a really bad sign.
It's not a very interesting way of figuring out how to beat an enemy. It's just do you have the item or not?
Yeah, well, especially if it's gee, I wish you had this item.
Right.
That's different than in the middle of the fight, the boss is oh man, I have a bump on the back of my neck. I wish someone could hit me in the back. That's different because then you can go, the boss is telling me I need to attack them from behind, or need to use a spell that involves hurting them in other ways than just.
It's different because everything in that game is consumable. Even your jump attacks are consumable cards that you use.
That also,
that's my problem with the game.
As someone who hates using items in games, I'm that RPG.
You save all of your Phoenix Downs to the final fight. You never use them.
That is me to the T. I refuse to use my potions, high potions,
common
next
sense.
Potions.
If you're smart, that's how you approach games. You wait till the last second to use them. You're not going to walk into a random fight and use your one and only spiky jump boot thing because you don't know if you're going to need it around the next corner.
Yeah.
It's insanely frustrating. And then you wind up in situations where it's not I need to use a lightning attack because he's like this. That's some interesting rock, paper, scissors, whatever that game's been doing for 30 years.
Yeah.
No, this game is saying you need to have the right things at the right time, which means you're incentivized to avoid every fight.
Sure.
And at the very least, Color Splash does have a simple XP system where you don't just get coins, because that was Sticker Star's problem. And we'll get back to Metroid in a second.
I know, but this is all important though, because we're going back to the idea of supporting a franchise.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is all tied together.
Yes.
But in Sticker Star, there was 0 XP whatsoever. It was all stickers that were instead of cards in Color Splash.
Yeah.
Stickers were how you did all of your attacks and everything. And defeating enemies only gave you coins. Mm-hmm. And the use for coins was buying stickers. So you would have to kill. If you were going through the game, killing enemies, you would wind up at the boss with no stickers left if you've been playing recklessly or whatever, or not well. No stickers left and a fuck ton of coins. So guess what? You go back into town, buy a bunch of stickers, and then all those enemies have respawned. So you have to run around the enemies, kiting them until you get to the boss, which then is like, oh, you have to use this one sticker on me.
You don't have any money because you spent it on restocking your coins on the way back.
All they had to have done was just give it the same system as Paper Mario 1 and 2, where you just have attacks.
Yeah.
And then you use them, and it's not all consumable items. Because it's an interesting idea on paper. Again, it's like a game jam idea. Like, what if you made an RPG where everything was consumable? Like, that's an interesting idea. In practice, they did not make a game that supports that idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. And
that's my issue with those games. But I bought it because I want another Paper Mario.
Right.
Those games are gorgeous. They're funny. The music, I'm with you on that.
And needless to say, even though you disagree with the gameplay mechanics, you could see that someone out there could actually enjoy that idea of the game. Like,
yes, there is 100% a person who loves the shit out of Color Splash, and I'm fine with that. It was not for me. I think it's a fundamentally broken game.
Sure.
But that's my opinion. It's subjective.
Right. But at the same time, like, objectively, right, that mechanic, like, if you'd have played Color Splash for the first time without any previous knowledge of the Paper Mario games, a game for what it is, you would probably enjoy it a little bit more. But you, in your back of your mind, you're going, this is not this is not my Paper Mario. This is not what we had. We had a previous game that reflected these bad changes, and instead of
you have a point of comparison.
Yes, and so that clearly changes. It almost makes the root of it a little more like raw, right? You're like, they had something before. Why did they go that direction?
Right.
And so
on the one hand, I respect them for not just remaking the same game over and over, talking about Mario 2, Zelda 2, etc.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're like halfway there. Like, you're reinventing the wheel, but then you're breaking a wheel that wasn't broken.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I don't know. There's definitely like a carriage metaphor where like you're not just painting it a new coat of paint, you're breaking the axle for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's like neither of those are what I want. I want like a new carriage.
Yeah.
But it's still a carriage.
Sure.
It'll still be driven by horse. I don't know. There's a metaphor there somewhere. I'll figure it out.
But anyways, the point is you supported the franchise. It's still somewhat fun to you. Hopefully you didn't. Did you feel like you wasted your $60 completely?
No. I mean, I don't treat game purchases like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm the kind of person that I will happily pay $60 for a game that I despise if it gives me something to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I like discussing games. I like picking apart games. So unless it's just like, I'm bored, I've played this 100 times before, that feels like a waste of my dollar, but I'm pretty good about not just buying. Like, if I'm not into FIFA, I'm not going to buy FIFA 17.
Sure. But at the same time, even though you're not going to buy FIFA, there are millions of people out there who will buy FIFA in those franchises.
And I have no bad things to say about those people whatsoever.
And also, like, you not buying FIFA is not going to change whether or not FIFA 19...
I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There is an install base.
Sure.
Whereas things like Paper Color Splash, Metroid, Star Fox, like, those are the franchises that get the least amount of love from Nintendo. Mm-hmm. And when they do go all out, they give it their best, but they're trying to innovate from what they did before. And sometimes the innovation clashes really hard.
Yes.
And so that's why it becomes so divisive to hate and to bicker and to disagree with what these companies have put in their heart and souls into.
Right.
Especially when they get so far to getting it almost right. It's like
what's more frustrating. Like, I'm more annoyed at Star Fox Zero than I am Metroid Federation Force.
Sure.
Because to me, Star Fox Zero was not quite a 64 remake. It wasn't quite a new Star Fox game. It threw in these gimmicky motion controls that didn't quite work.
Yeah.
And I played that game through mostly co-op, and the co-op is not balanced at all.
Yeah.
It's really weird and hard to play.
Yeah.
And it's like more frustrating me than if they made a super weird Star Fox Adventures type spin-off like they did with Metroid Federation Force, which to me, it's like, at least they're doing something different. Yes, I'm annoyed that it has this weird chibi art style and that it's clearly not, it's like, I mean, when you think Metroid, you think isolation, you think going into a alien planet and you're on a mission. co-op does not mesh with that.
Yeah.
So a 4-player co-op Monster Hunter does not make sense with the identity of Metroid. But you could say that they're trying to expand the Metroid brand, trying to invite more types of experiences into that universe, which I'm all for something like that. I remember being disappointed when Federation Force was announced, and then when I learned more about what the game was, I was more interested, because I was like, okay, this isn't Metroid, but at least it's like this weird Monster Hunter thing where you have different roles, different classes. I didn't buy it, so I didn't really help out there, but I was at least like trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. Okay, like what idea, because I don't think that game came out of a boardroom discussion of we need a new Metroid game, because that would have just given us Samus Returns.
To me, it was more of, hey, we made a cool, unique idea in the Metroid engine. How do we tie it to Metroid?
Or we have this new idea. Is there an existing IP we can slap onto it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Star Fox Adventures, right? Like, infamously, it was not a Star Fox game
until Miyamoto
was like, this is now Star Fox.
And they're like,
same
okay.
thing with Doki Doki Panic. Like, Doki Doki Panic was a different game, and they were like, put Mario people in it and now call it Mario 2. Like, that's
those
the
Westerners
game now.
Are too dumb for hard games.
Right.
They're right.
What do you mean? We have Dark Souls now. We love Dark Souls.
Made by Japan, though.
It's true. But we like it.
But we do like it.
We do love it a lot. So to go back to it, though, we want to support these franchises, right?
Yes.
And so we want to see the next Star Fox. We want to see the next Metroid, the next Sonic, the next whatever it is. And so now more than ever, we have to look at these games for both their source material and what they did differently and decide this. I like this. I don't like this. And it creates a different zone going forward, especially because nowadays Nintendo's not the one producing this game. This game was made by
Mercury Steam,
a completely different company. This game was originally a Metroid Fusion pitch remake, which was very fascinating to me. And originally, the director of the original Metroids was like, let's remake Super Metroid. Like, that's what he wanted.
Really?
And it's like,
I didn't know that.
I don't know if I would be happy if they made Super Metroid in the same style that they did Samus Returns. I don't think I would really enjoy it. I think
I have a different relationship with that game.
Absolutely, especially because the melee mechanic was really brilliant, but it got pretty old pretty quickly once you realize that every enemy you fight, like almost in the beginning, needs to be fought this way.
Right.
Usually in Metroid, like as you get your guns, you can progress and shoot through them, and that's true. But there were just some enemies were designed for, in order to fight me, you gotta smack me with your gun, and that can create some fatigue sometimes. Like I definitely had moments where I was like, I like this mechanic a lot, but it got old somewhere in the middle of the game when you realize that you have to get the rhythm every single time.
Right. The thing I find really strange about the way the melee... So now we're finally getting to Samus Returns, I guess. The thing I find...
Sorry, is that where you wanted to go?
Yeah,
we can go back.
Yeah, let's keep talking about Mario until hour 3. The thing I find really interesting about the melee counter is that your attacks apparently do more damage, or at least the melee counter itself does a lot of damage.
The counter itself does a lot of damage. It does like a good base damage, but what it does is that it opens up the enemy to more capabilities of getting hit.
Yeah, so it stuns them, it locks, because you can spin 360 degrees. That's one of the big innovations for Metroid in this game, is you can aim in any goddamn direction.
Yeah.
And when you do a melee counter, it stuns the enemy in place and it locks your gun onto them. Excuse me. So, but I noticed that like those like little hopper frog dudes, you can just like blast them all day. It takes like 1,000 shots to kill them, or you melee them, shoot them once or twice, and they're dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it that like my gun is supercharged after I melee, or it's just like the melee itself just does a ton of damage?
I think it's from the action of them being stunned, because they're in a stunned state. They're susceptible to more damage.
But I don't think that's it, because if you counter them and then manually aim at them, it still takes a lot of shots. It takes more shots than if you just shoot from the auto lock on.
Okay.
I think. I'm like 90% sure.
I think you're right in that case, because I think it actually is almost like, not like a cutscene, but like a bonus hit. Like when you're locked in, it's like kind of this fluid motion of melee hit into this cutscene-esque action of shooting when you're locked on, and I think that's
and as long as you don't break out of that moment.
Because now that I think about it, you're right. If you go full rotation mode and don't continue the action, then it does take a little while.
Because there's definitely times when there's like 3 enemies and I'm trying to melee all of them to stun them all, and then like, oh, now I'll shoot them, and it takes a bunch of shots to do that.
Yeah.
But I am a fan of the melee, at least in theory, if not mostly in practice. I agree it does get old eventually, but then later in the game you get, like the screw attack, spoilers.
Yeah.
And then you can just jump through every level and it's fine. And you don't have to fight anything unless you wanted to. But combat has never really been a strong suit of Metroid specifically. It's functional, but you're usually very restricted by your movement abilities. Before you get things like the space jump and screw attack, you can just sort of walk around and aim in different directions. And, I've been watching a bunch of videos about Metroid because everyone's making Metroid videos right now, which is great.
It's funny because they weren't there 3 months ago.
Right. I wonder why.
And
I don't remember who exactly said it, but someone was mentioning that, like, well, basically, even in like Super Metroid, the strategy is to get a bunch of energy tanks to tank your way through the boss battles.
Yeah.
Until you've played the game 1,000 times and you know the exact patterns and whatever. Because some of the bosses, like Fantoon, you're just like bouncing all over the place and they're firing out projectiles. You're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
And you have no way to really counter that besides having a lot of HP.
Yeah.
So it's just a situation where can you outperform the boss's damage? Can you tank more damage and do more damage than they can?
Either that, or can you get really good at reading the boss to the point where you're pixel hiding your way through it?
I'm talking about like a casual playthrough of the game. Whereas with Metroid Returns, oh my god, how can Metroid crawl? Samus Returns.
It's okay.
Although it is also Metroid Returns in a way.
I just want to point out, and this is a funny thing, even for Nintendo's marketing department, the Amiibo box set for Samus Returns. On the back of it, it says Metroid Return of Samus Amiibo.
Return of Samus?
Yeah, so
really?
they like even the marketing team messed up on it. So I wouldn't don't be too hard on yourself.
Was that like an early name of the game or something?
I mean, Return of Samus. I think Return of Samus is the original, and so.
Is that the original subtitle of?
of Metroid 2, Metroid 2 Return of Samus. So that's why it's Samus Returns.
Wow. And at the last minute before they were printing the boxes, they're like, it's Samus Returns now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of funny, yeah.
Yeah.
At least on my box. Maybe it's on all of them, but mine definitely had it.
So in the older Metroids, you were basically restricted for the most part by like things like movement, and you don't have a lot of combat abilities. I guess technically in the older Metroids, you can swap between different, beam types, but why really would you?
Yeah.
So you're just sort of spamming them with your shots and your missiles and your super missiles. You're using super missiles until those run out, then you're using missiles until those run out, then you're just using regular beam hits. Like, there's not a lot of strategy there.
Yeah.
It's just you are shooting this boss and waiting for him to be vulnerable. And at the very least, I think the addition of a counter is a interesting way to mix that up. At the very least with the smaller dudes, if not with the bosses themselves. Because when a boss has a counter, it feels kind of required, even in this game, where it's like, oh, now you have this big cutscene where Samus is blowing them up, which... At the very least, the cutscenes are interactive. You're still shooting missiles.
Yeah, you're like jumping in the air, flipping while spamming the missiles. You can change the missiles in between the cutscene.
Yeah, if it was purely a cutscene and you just watched her do a lot of damage, I'd be more frustrated.
Yeah.
As it stands, it's just like a nice, like, you did the counter thing, which it seems like the window for the counter is fairly generous.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I did it, just like a perfect dodge. It's just kind of like, okay, I did what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But at least for the minor dudes, the counter... To me, it gave it this nice little rhythm where you walk up, you wait, and usually you don't have to wait for very long.
You hear the cue of the shink,
and there's a visual cue,
boom.
Melee counter, blow them up, keep moving.
Yeah.
And it's even easier for the flying dudes because the second they see you, they like dive into you.
Yeah.
It's only the dudes that hop around the ground who you have to kind of wait for them to turn
the ones
around.
that like kind of like back up and wait, and then they go in.
Yep. But so for the most part, it feels more involved to me than previous Metroid combat rooms where you're just sort of, locked in place, just sort of picking them off one by one.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I can go through. Or you just jump through them and you're like, I don't want to fight them.
Yeah.
Which you can still do. It's still a valid strategy. Just avoid them.
At first the idea of hunting 40 Metroids was like kind of overwhelming. I was like, that's a lot of things to kill and to keep barreling forward through all those corridors and power-ups, and then you realize that's the game, that's the purpose, that's what you're supposed to do. And so it kind of changed for me when I first started. In the beginning, I felt like I was kind of roughing it out through each zone, and then it felt really purposeful, like, oh, I have to do this and move on to the next part. And the linearity with the lava, I think, was a good, nice touch, because not only was it you didn't find all the Metroids, but it was also, there are some Metroids you can't find unless you have this power up to open that door,
right,
or to be able to get into that corridor or whatever.
Yeah, they
jumping
lock
high
Metroids
enough
behind power ups instead of just pure progression. I mean, it's the same with more steps, I guess.
Right.
But it feels a little more organic than just like, I've explored everywhere in the fucking map. Okay, now I got this one ability and now I can go everywhere. It's more like you get this ability and now you can go over here and now you open up this big area. Mm-hmm. It feels a little bit, I don't know. I agree with you. I think it worked.
Yeah.
At the very least, as someone not familiar with Metroid 2, it felt fresh in a way that I wasn't expecting. Because if it was another Super Metroid 1 type map where you just sort of gradually expand where you can go, especially because I played the fuck out of Hollow Knight early this year, which I absolutely adore. I don't know if you played Hollow Knight at all.
I just started playing it. I'm on a Metroid kick right now.
It is. I mean, obviously I played it before Samus Returns came out, but it's the best Metroidvania I've played in years.
Yeah.
I really love that game, and that's a game that actually I think nails its combat really well. It's especially once you get a bunch of abilities later on, there's a lot of choices you can make, and the whole I forget what it's called, like you have like little notches that you can assign little abilities onto.
Yeah.
So you can sort of customize your character a little bit, you make it more combat heavy, more whatever. It just gives the player a lot of kind of expressiveness.
Yeah.
Express yourself. But going from Hollow Knight, which is very much a kind of Super Metroid type experience, it's a big, sprawling map, and you find all these weird little paths that connect things as you get new abilities. And in Metroid Samus Returns, you like introduce these big chunks. And I think it's like area 3 or 4, which is the first one that has more than one Metroid gate inside of it. And you're like, oh shit, like that feels like a big moment of like, how big is this area?
Yeah.
Whereas I think you wouldn't have that unless you had that kind of gating.
Or even
though it's completely artificial, it's objectively another zone that they introduce to you by lowering the purple goo. But because it's in the same quote-unquote area,
the same quadrant,
it feels like a bigger part of the... I don't know.
One of the biggest oh shit moments I had was, I think it's area 5 or 6, where you kill one Metroid, you turn it in, and then it raises the lava, or raises the poison in the area you just were in, and so now you're like, oh shit, now I have to find a different way to go, and you end up going to a different route, and then you kill that Metroid and turn it in, and then it goes back to normal. But like, it just felt fun because now you are going to an area you didn't know existed, or it was gated earlier with the purple acidic acid soup, whatever it is. Yeah. I think overall, the biggest complaints I had with Metroid Samus Returns was never about the game design so much as it was about playing the game. Because on the 3DS, as a gentleman who has very large hands,
right,
I was hurting a lot. As a
gentleman with average size hands, I was hurting.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the tell of it, right? I think first off, not having customization controls is not an excuse in today's day and age. There are a lot of gamers out there who struggle physically with their hands. They're left-handed. Maybe they have cerebral palsy or whatever it is to not be able to play the game they want to play. And I said the same thing about ARMS. ARMS lacked that same problem. And just you have to play one of the few controller ways that they offer, and you can't change the buttons. Until recently, they released a patch.
Yes.
And I think...
that was sorely needed, especially for ARMS, because blocking required pushing in the stick.
Yes.
Which is a very unnatural thing to do like that in a fighting game.
Yeah, especially when usually in a fighting game, holding back is what blocks. So like, you can't do that in a 3D
like arena fighter.
Over the shoulder arena fighter, right? I think that was the big thing. I think while I liked the addition of the 4 D-pad based power-ups, I would have much rather sacrificed those to be touchscreen based and use the D-pad to actually use as a D-pad.
I agree.
Because the analog stick of the 3DS is not the same analog stick that's on the Switch or the Wii U gamepad or Pro Controller. Mm-hmm. If it was, no one would complain.
No.
But the reality is that the 3DS control stick it's like a penny that you are...
Yeah, you slide it around.
You're sliding around. And so how else are you supposed to... Like, I have seen a lot of people destroy their 3DSs playing Smash because of the thumbstick. And I think to not give people the option to use the D-pad in a game where up until this point, Super Metroid, Metroid 1, Metroid 2, Metroid Fusion were all played with a D-pad.
Right.
And so you're forcing the user to go ahead and not use the D-pad for that 3D atmosphere. And I think the way that Super Metroid remedied that was you used L and R to aim in the directions of where you want to go. Like if you know, left and up is up left and up is right, and the same thing. Right. And so when you're doing the 360 axis holding R and you're kind of aiming, you can still use the D-pad to get it. Well, right. Would it be full control? Not really, but in those moments, that's the time to use the 3DS thumbstick as a means of a fully control system to get wherever you want to go. But when you're running around, you want precision and you're jumping and there's enemies coming in, the D-pad is a must. It really is. Or at least give us the option.
Exactly.
Switching the missiles and the grapple beam and stuff on the touchscreen, like I had so many moments where I was holding my 3DS really weird and then like shooting and then like tapping. It was like
the Guitar Hero on the DS.
Yes. Yeah, just like kind of like this reverse engineer. Yeah, like you're tapping. I felt like an idiot because it wasn't until my last playthrough where I realized this. If you aim at a grapple beam hook, it automatically switches to the grapple beam.
They tell you that, I think.
I just ignored that for some weird reason. I never knew that. And so
I definitely knew that. I just don't remember if I think they outright tell you that when you get the grapple beam in like the little thing of text.
Yeah, because
you were probably like, I played Super Metroid. I know how the grapple beam works.
It's exactly how I was. I was like, grapple beam, great. I know how to do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
Which made it so much easier towards the end, but you still
there's a couple of bosses where you have to switch to the grapple beam, and
right.
It's a huge pain if you're trying to manually switch to it.
I had a lot of moments where I was like, and here come the missiles, I'm on grapple beam.
Yeah.
Like every single time.
No, for me, I didn't have a whole lot of issues with the circle pad. I think that it is essentially a binary input. I don't think there's any kind of like, you can slowly walk with Samus. So I think that movement would translate to a D-pad. It's not like you can tiptoe through the tulips. It's not like
the enemies have sound detection where they're like, what the fuck is that?
and also having the Aeon abilities mapped to the D-pad isn't that necessary because you're not switching between them frequently.
Yeah.
It's usually, I need the green suit power-up thing, or I need to slow down time for this area. Not like, this enemy needs this and this enemy needs that. Whereas at the very least, I think being able to map the missiles and gravity beam to the D-pad, which, like, yes, I agree, movement on the D-pad would have been better, but it's like at least switching those so you have the 4 Aeon abilities on the touchscreen.
Yo, that would have been so much better.
Even that would have been better.
Customization is so key.
Yes.
In today's day and age, your game, if you were making a game, give the player the option to bind whatever the fuck they want. I know you want them to play the game you want to play. That notion alone would have saved Star Fox Zero.
Yeah.
If you had the ability to customize how you control the game and how you played it, and you can still do all your motion control stuff all you want and let people enjoy it for what that is. But if you gave everyone the option to just choose the way you want to play and let them go that route, then you win. You can have your marketing arm to show how to play, and you have the hardcore demographic that gets to play the game the way that they want to play it.
Right. Because it's not purely an accessibility thing. To me, this might be really shitty to say, they're an added bonus.
Right.
That people who have issues playing the game with the standard controls have the ability to use additional controllers and things like that. To me, that's fucking fantastic. To me, it's just like, you're giving people the option. That's like the core essence of being able to provide controller options. And I think Samus Returns, like a lot of games, has like a controller screen, which is just like a picture of the DS with, here's what the buttons do. And there's that moment of, it's like, I can change things. No, I can't.
That's so real.
Whenever you see that display of the controller with the buttons, it's
I kept going to the option screen going, is there a switch? Can I hold L and nope. Okay, that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
It's the same with, if you tap the touch screen, you go into morph ball mode or you exit morph ball mode.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a great addition. The fact that you can just tap a button instead of having to crouch, then crouch again. And I used it a lot, but because it was mapped to the touchscreen and because the different beam abilities are on the right side of the touchscreen, I had to take my thumb off of the circle pad to hit the D-pad to turn to a morph ball, and doing that motion over and over just added to like the crampiness of my hands.
It's almost like you are, imagine playing a controller and then like as you're playing the controller, you have to do something else, which requires you to pick up your phone and tap your phone and then
Right.
put your phone down and then go back to it. Obviously, it's not as extreme as that because you're like the motion of phone down, but it feels like that.
It's the kind of thing that's not a deal breaker, at least not for me. But
It
over
definitely
the course
isn't. Yeah.
of I beat it in 11 hours on my first playthrough, my only playthrough.
Yeah.
But I got 100%, 11 hours, and that was enough time for these minor little things to just sort of become more and more pressing concerns. Where just having the ability of like, let me map because I have a 3DS XL. So, or a new 3DS XL. So I had 2 extra ZL and ZR buttons. I have the little circle pad nub on the right side. Let me map things to those. Create a default control scheme that works on every DS, but because I have extra buttons, let me use those. Let me map turning into a morph ball to ZL. Let me map grapple beam to ZR. Like, give me those options. Why do I have these extra buttons?
So to me, not only do I agree with you, but that's how you sell a new 3DS. Right. And and that sounds really dumb, but imagine, because here's the thing. One of the only few games out there that requires the new 3DS XL is Xenoblade Chronicles. You cannot play Xenoblade Chronicles X, I think, on a regular 3DS.
It just will not run.
It won't run well. It's like not designed for it. Whereas it was designed, like they made it for the new 3DS. It's one of the only games where it says new 3DS XL on the bind. Like it says new on it. Whereas if you had the game accessible to everyone, like great, having a new 3DS XL doesn't make the experience different, but if you're a new 3DS XL user and you've got more buttons, that's more options to do what you need to do.
Right.
And so, not that you need to buy another 3DS to like get that added benefit, but it makes use of the new 3DS. Why should I own a new 3DS XL when it has 3 new buttons that no one's designing to use for?
Yeah.
Like, give me a reason to use these added features that I bought in this new rendition of a console that's been re-released 2 times at this point.
Yes.
3rd generation 3DS XL, and you don't have anything to pay for it with these new buttons. Like, sure, it runs faster, sure, it's smoother and it looks cooler, and it's based off my favorite game that I bought at the time, but like, come on, give me the added bonus. Let me use those buttons exactly. Let me have the ability to use the nub to do quick melee or even to just like pop a switch on. Like if I can map,
you could replace the D-pad of switching between aim abilities with the little circle nub.
Yeah,
that's precise enough to do 4 different directions.
Yes,
on.
especially when you don't have to use it that often. Move it left to activate it, move it left to turn it off, move it up to activate it, move it up to turn it off.
I'm not the biggest fan of that
the nub,
little nipple thing, but it definitely gets the job done. I mean, when I bought my first 3DS, it was to play Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate.
Yeah, and so you ended up buying that adapter.
I bought the 3DS and the Circle Pad Pro on the same day, which is this, for anyone who doesn't know, this giant plastic box that houses your 3DS just to add a second Circle Pad. That is the entire function. It might have added the ZL and ZR as well.
It did.
But yeah, it was basically a giant new 3DS before that existed.
Yeah.
And when that came out, I transferred my saves over and got a new 3DS. And that was like the first time I'd ever bought more than one console in one generation. Like I never bought an updated DS. I never got a DSi. I had the weird clamshell, whatever, sandwich looking thing that the DS always was. That was my DS. I had the original Game Boy Advance, never got an SP or a Micro. Like that, I'm not that kind of gamer where it's like I need to have every version of the thing.
Right.
I'm not a collector in that sense.
Sure.
But with the 3DS, I was like, this is worth it for someone like me that wants to play Monster Hunter and needs to move the camera around, frankly.
Yeah.
It's worth it getting this new thing. So now that I have this fancy new machine, let me use it, Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I know it's not first party, maybe it's second party. I don't know Mercury Steam. I don't know what they're about, but
technically second party, third party. I don't know.
It doesn't seem unreasonable to be like, hey, can you add support for, and not extra graphics or anything like that. Like Monster Hunter, I think 4 Ultimate is graphically better on the new 3DS. You can look at comparisons all day. It is so subtle. It's like the texture resolution is better.
Yeah.
It's a very subtle difference. And in motion, you don't really notice it that much.
Also, it's a fucking 3DS.
Also, it's like a 240p screen.
This screen does 240. Like
right.
you're trying to argue it looks better whether it's on a 3DS.
I don't care about it being super fancy. I care about having more buttons.
It's still on a 240p screen at the end of the day.
Right.
If it was the Switch, different story because it's outputting at 720. It puts on the TV at 1080.
Exactly.
But 240p is 240p.
Yep.
Call it what you want. It's not going to really look that much better, with the exception of you're dropping frame rates left and right.
Yeah.
To go along, before we switch over to Metroidvania talk in general,
yes,
I think one thing too that really underwhelmed me a little bit was the use of those new abilities in the game. The scan was perfect. The scan was I
wanted to talk to you about the scan.
Yeah, the scan, in my opinion, was a great way to let gamers feel comfortable finding secrets in their own way. Because Metroid's always been that game that's like, I have to aim at every single block and pixel in the room to find the secret. Is there a secret in here? I have no idea. I have the map that unveiled the whole map, so I have an idea, but that doesn't always necessarily work for some people.
Right.
Whereas with the scanner, it's like, hey, there are secrets. It doesn't tell you where all the secrets are, but in this vicinity, there's secrets nearby. It flashes the tiles in the room, so you know that that's where to look. It saves a lot of time in the looking for secrets style, so that if you're speedrunning or you're in a hurry, you're trying to get to the end goal, you can use it more accessibly versus like remembering every single pixel, every single frame of where you need to go.
Right. Yeah.
So that one works really nicely, the scan ability.
I have mixed feelings about the scan pulse, because to me it almost feels like a solution to a problem that doesn't need to exist. There's no reason for breakable blocks to look identical to non-breakable blocks.
Sure.
And sometimes they do
You're
look
talking
different.
aesthetically, where it, like visually looking at them.
Looking at the world, I think you should be able to tell what you can and can't destroy. Maybe you don't have the right thing to blow it up.
Well, setting the standard of game design. Looking at it and you're going, if I'm looking at 10 blocks and one of these blocks is a little bit discolored or has a little rubble in it,
right,
then you're telling the gamer there's something wrong with that block. You should probably go look at it.
There's even like the Binding of Isaac way to do it, which is just have a visual difference that's subtle. You kind of have to know what to look for.
The colorization of the blocks
color's
being
a little
from
different.
black
There might
to charcoal.
be like a little X on it in the corner, whatever. There's a way to do it that
Crack
doesn't
in the
involve
wall,
shooting every pixel in the room and creating an ability that shows you where those hidden blocks are. To me, it feels like now I feel like I have to scan constantly because you're going to be hiding shit everywhere.
Yeah.
This gives the designer the ability to hide shit in every room because you can just hit a button to see where it is.
Sure.
So blowing up a thing on the wall and then having a missile upgrade doesn't feel exciting, and it never really did. Maybe as like an extra bonus of, oh wow, I didn't think there was anything there. That could be fun. But now it's like they use it a lot as, here is an entrance that leads to another room, and now here's a puzzle you have to figure out.
Sure.
That's like the best version of the scan pulse to me. Is
Yeah.
showing you where to go to find a little secret area with a puzzle that rewards in a pickup.
Well, let me ask you this, because since we're talking about the scan pulse, you played Super Metroid, obviously.
Yeah.
What did you feel? What were your opinions and thoughts of the
little X-ray visor
the
thing?
X-ray visor.
I think it's super cumbersome, which almost incentivizes you to only use it when you have to.
Sure.
Whereas the scan pulse reveals everything near you, gives you a fair window to run around the room and like try to follow where the beeping is coming from.
Yeah.
To find where the things are, and it reveals the map, which I think is the biggest thing about it.
That to me is
you don't have to explore. You just hit a button. It's like, there's the map. Here's where the secrets are.
Yeah.
Which it's a game about exploration. I guess Metroid 2 is less so, which is kind of the point. But even in the framework of Metroid 2, I think there's value in uncovering the map. There's a simple joy in filling in every pixel of the map. And hitting a button to do that kind of felt cheap to me. And I used it a lot early in the game, and I sort of thought about it and was like, why am this is making the game less fun for me.
Yeah.
I only used it when I was in a room that, because of the map, I knew, okay, there is a pickup in this room. I just don't want to spend all day shooting every block, so I'm going to, use the pulse.
So
But the visor thing in Super Metroid functions similarly, but I think because it's so slow to move and I don't know. Like, I never used it that much.
You're right. So the visor to me is a means of showing someone who's never played the game before how to use it properly, like how to find secrets properly. The problem is that by the time you get the visor in Super Metroid, you've already established where secrets are and how they work.
It's a really late game ability.
And you're really using it more in Meridia or Norfair to try and find some of the more secretive areas. Like in Meridia, right when you walk out, there's that Shine Spark missile where you run from right to left, like change screens and Shine Spark straight up. You'd never notice Shine Spark to get that missile if you had not used the visor to look and see that there's a little Shine Spark logo. So
Or unless you bombed every wall
unless you bomb, yeah, like in that case, you're creating a long bomb chain to get to that one little pixel to then do it, and the power bomb doesn't.
I did some high bomb jumps in that game just to see if there's anything up there.
That's the one thing I'll say about Samus Returns is that they made it so you could pretty much do that a lot easier. You could like almost bomb wall your way to some power ups if you wanted.
I agree, but also they made a change. So it's like when you create a bomb, it creates this upward trajectory of the Samus. But if you bomb, leave, and then roll back while that force is still active, it still pushes you up. Like there's a big window where even after the visual disappears, it'll still make Samus jump in the morph wall. So there were a lot of places where like in the bottom right corner of a room, there would be a bombable wall. And it's like, okay, I just want to bomb that so I can open up the wall and then roll through. So I'm not going to bomb in place because that's going to shoot me up in the air and I have to fall back down and now roll through. I'm going to roll one pixel to the left, one tile to the left, bomb it, now roll to the right, and it would still push me up like I jumped. And I was just like, maybe that's like a side effect of making bomb jumping easier.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't that easy. I still had to like get into the rhythm of it like you do.
Did you...
I don't know, that's a real nitpick, but I kept running into it and I was like...
So I want to ask you this, and everyone at home, I'm sure, who's played Metroid or Samus Returns probably experienced this, but did you figure out what to do with the red crystals?
No. Nope.
Do you want? You're gonna.
I looked it up.
You looked it up. Okay, yeah. So
I played it after the game came out.
Yeah, so So for me, I'm in like a YouTube Discord chat group with Nintendo ambassadors who get games early, and so we're always talking like, did you figure out this? What does this mean? What does that mean? To try and help each other.
That's a really good idea.
And so I got invited to that group late. And I showed up and I got to the point where I was like, what the fuck do I do? And no one knew. And then I figured it out. And I was like, guys, this is how you do it. And everyone was like, yeah.
Wow.
But that moment, for those of you guys who don't know what we're talking about, in Samus Returns, you have a really big epic boss fight and you get the power bomb.
Yes.
And the power bomb, obviously,
pretty late in the game.
Very late. You're talking like near end game status.
Yeah.
And you get this power bomb, and the power bomb's a staple to the Metroid franchise. A massive white bomb sphere that blows everything up in the way. But you'll encounter these red crystals that you need to progress through, and everyone was thinking,
are they required? I think they're just for
secrets. For secrets, but there's also,
and you've passed them through the game.
Yeah, and because that's the whole thing about Metroid Samus Returns is that you encounter an obstacle, you go, I can't figure out how to get past that.
That's a staple of Metroidvania.
Yeah,
that's the genre.
You then get that item and you go, oh, I can get past this. But most people who played Samus Returns for the first time blindly got to that point where they go, okay, I have every item in the game. Why can't I get past these red crystals?
Yes.
And the whole thing is you're supposed to hold the R or L for the spider. Is it R or L in bomb form?
I think it's R.
It's R. You get into spider ball form, and then you release a power bomb, and it sends you straight up in a line across the sky.
It's like a shine spark because the game doesn't have.
The speed boost is not there. Yes,
right.
It's the game's shine spark to throw you. And it was the coolest thing ever when I figured that out. And the game, through subtle game design, tells you how to use it when you get the power bomb. Like when you get it, it's like they make you bomb the wall up.
Right.
And so it's kind of like it lines up perfectly for where it is, but they never tell you to hold the spider bomb thing. So you never really figured it out. But if you happen to be holding it, you would realize, oh, I can just go straight up, and it help you do massive shortcuts, avoid enemies, things like that.
That's the thing that really bothers me about that, because the spider ball is required to go up walls. So there's a couple horizontal rows of red spikes, and the only way to get across is to roll up a wall using the spider ball, then lay a power bomb, and then it'll rocket you sideways through the tunnel.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Requiring the spider bomb when you're on the ground to shoot straight up makes zero sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
It should just work if you're sitting on top of a power bomb.
Yeah, it should just send you in the direction you want to go.
Yeah, it should send you straight up if you're on top of it, instead of like the regular bombs, which might bounce you to the left or right or whatever. If you're on top of a power bomb, it should just send you straight up.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been enough to teach players. I think I would have, I like to think I would have eventually figured out the horizontal ones just from like, I'm on this wall, maybe I'll try laying a power bomb. And because you have to hold the R button in spider ball
You're
mode,
already in that position, so
you're ready to go.
Yeah, it just sends you.
But I do not think I would have put it together that you have to hold Spider Ball on the ground
to
rock it off the ground.
Right.
Which is, it's holding you to the ground.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. That bothers me.
Yeah. That was crazy to figure out.
I'm glad that there's at least one thing in the game that they didn't outright spell for you. But when I looked it up, it made me feel really dumb and really mad.
Yeah.
At the same time, it wasn't the same thing where
you feel dumb yourself at being like, oh man, why didn't I
could have figured that out?
Yeah, but then you're like, wait, but
that doesn't make sense.
The game design should tell me how to figure it out.
Right. I think there's a way for them, and I guess I would need to replay that section where you get the power bomb because I don't remember there being like a teaching moment.
Well, to be fair, you fight a really epic boss right before it. One of the hardest bosses probably in Metroid history.
Yeah, it took me quite a few tries.
It took me quite a while, and then you
5 or
finally
6 tries.
You finally beat it, and you're like on this high of like, I fucking whooped his ass. Yes. Oh, I get the power bomb. Sweet. All right, let's get out of here. Like you're not thinking to like, oh, the power bomb. What can I do with this? It's like, you know what it is. Well, I gotta go.
It's never worked like this. It's always been a room clearing kind of move.
Open doors, clear the room, kill enemies, remove blocks that are in the way.
If you're new to Metroid or a Metroid vet, you're both gonna approach this as, oh, this is a really powerful bomb.
Yeah.
Which actually, maybe if you're new to Metroid, you think, oh, maybe I can use this to fire up. But then you wouldn't use the spider ball to rocket yourself up.
It's true.
It makes me mad.
The other things before we move on that drive me crazy are I like the use of the scan pulse. I love the armor.
I use the armor all the time.
The armor was a great thing. It was like my passive.
This game doesn't pull its punches. It really does damage to
on
you.
hard mode and fusion mode, it is required.
Yeah.
You need it. You need it.
Yeah. Pretty much every boss battle I had the green armor on.
Right. The time warp and the massive charge pulse blaster thing. Yeah, I used them for the small 1 or 2 moments where I had to, and I never used them ever again. And it felt weird because the game made such a big deal of you're going to get these 4 power-ups that do these 4 different things, and I ended up only using 2 the whole game.
Right. One in combat, one in exploration.
Exactly. Yeah. And it bummed me out because there were those moments where I finally, you have to find those tall like vine flowers, and you can only shoot them with the I think it's the pulse blaster.
With the yellow.
Yeah, the yellow pulse blaster, and you're like, what if I don't have any more meter? What do I do?
Yeah.
And you're stuck. There's that one area in area 2.
Oh, there is like a tunnel with 2 of them.
Yeah, and you're just like, I can't.
Well, if you shoot them for a while without using that, they spit out a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, but
so those bugs would give you some of that Aeon meter back.
True, but
that was their like, this could get you trapped. So
in that hallway, they don't spawn because there's no upper way for them to get out. Because they're attached to the wall, so your only option is to leave by going down the elevator you just came up or down the area, and so you're like, oh, I'm stuck here, and so you have to like go down, collect some, and then go all the way back.
That's a bummer.
Every other time when you find them, you're in an open area.
Yeah, you can just jump over them.
You can jump over them, or you can shoot those things that come out. But in that hallway, they don't come out, so you're just like, well, I guess I'm stuck here.
I guess this is where I live now.
This is my home, my new neighbors.
Wow.
But then and the time mechanic, while it was super fun, super interesting, super cool,
it was just
had no use for it.
It was their version of the speed boost, I guess.
It was like,
but even less.
It was the reverse. Yeah, it was like, oh, I could slow down time and run around with it.
I remember when I got it, my imagination ran wild, and I was like, oh, there's gonna be a boss who's coming up who's really fast.
That's what I was waiting for,
and I'm gonna have to remember to use this to slow him down so I can get in some shots, and then I'm gonna have to like farm some Aeon energy off of him or something. And it never happened. The thing too, since we're talking about bosses now, sorry, we just keep going on and on.
Yeah. Some of them, I actually really liked fighting the 40 Metroids. I think their evolution of how, like, each one felt a little different, a little faster, a little more evolved, and I see a lot of complaints of people going, "Oh, I got tired of it," and it's like, well, did you learn how to fight them? Because to me, getting better and better at fighting them was one of the coolest aspects. I didn't know this, and maybe you figured this out. The ice beam to me was like the dumbest weapon in this game at first. Like I like shooting enemies, but like they freeze and that's it. Like they freeze temporarily. In previous Metroids, the ice beam goes through them and it kills them. So you're not really needing the necessity to switch to the ice beam. It's a stackable gun.
Right.
And this one, it's a different beast
you have to
altogether.
manually switch over to it.
Right, and I never figured out why it was so important until I realized that you can freeze the Metroids with a full charge shot.
Yep.
Once that happened, oh my God, I was ripping Metroids apart left and right, especially the small starting ones. You shoot them once, they can't do their moves, and you just bring them down in 2 or 3 shots.
It breaks them out of their cycles too, or the ones that fly around and like swoop down, they'll like instantly go into their land in like counterable state.
Yeah.
I instantly thought about that as soon as I got the ice beam, because that's like, to me, that's like a staple of Metroids, is use the ice beam on them.
I never really thought about
Just
it.
didn't put it together.
No, and so I don't know why.
I don't know how you would figure that out unless you were just experimenting. Because, again, that's like, as someone who's played a lot of Metroid games, that's like what you do, is you freeze them and shoot them with missiles.
But similarly to that of those Aeon abilities, though, the ice beam from a platforming perspective is required in a few moments, and
like 3, and then never again.
And so, and to me, like the way that they use the ice beam, it feels like it was designed for that. And so, if you don't really teach the person how to use that or really know how to incorporate the charge beam in that way, like you would never really know to do that. And like you force them, because the last Metroid in that area, when you get the ice beam, like you have to, there's no way to get up there unless you have the ice beam and you know what to do. And the whole time for the first run of the game, I was like spamming the ice beam, like, please stay frozen, please stay frozen, please stay frozen. And then I realized, I can charge it up. I'm an idiot. But it took me a while to get there.
That actually took me a long time to figure out that they stay frozen for longer if you charge it.
They stay a lot longer when they're frozen.
Yeah, because I was doing the same thing of like freeze, like jump on top and freeze, jump off, like not thinking it through.
Yeah,
I'm not a very smart boy. But yeah, I did like the evolution of them. The only one that I really disliked is the one that travels to different rooms, because it just kills the pacing of the fight.
You mean the...
He's like phase 3 or
something.
My
goodness. You're right.
Because he's an interesting fight, and there's like an electrified version of him in the lava areas, which is interesting. But then like at a random point in the fight, he's like, I'm going to leave. And then you have to find a new arena to fight him in, and it just sucks.
The thing that I had to learn pretty quickly, considering I had to speedrun the game 3 times again, was realizing that you could actually stop those guys from leaving the room if you killed them fast enough.
Really?
Yeah, if you got good enough at killing them when you were fighting them, you could kill them before they leave the room.
Thank God for that.
But that's a lot of pressure. That means that you have to just be perfect in your execution to stop them from leaving and killing them. And that, again, I'm with you. That was a huge pacing killer for me, especially because there are moments where the rooms are not next to each other. They are in theory, but there's that one lava room where you're like go in the top right corner and you have to like go into the Norfair area-ish, and then there's like a room to the left, a room to the right, and a room to the top right corner. And they don't really connect that well, so you have to jump up from one, roll ball to the other.
The first time I fought that Metroid, I visited the other 2 rooms before I found the one he was in. And that didn't feel good.
No,
because I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be fun at all.
Yeah, and you're sitting like, where's the hell's the Metroid?
And my little pulse thing is like, there's a Metroid nearby. I'm like, I know there's a Metroid.
I'm trying to find him.
I don't want to find him. This sucks. But all the other ones I thought were interesting, and they all evolved in interesting ways, and they progressively become more. They go from being like standard-ish enemies, like beefy enemies, to mini bosses to bosses, and like there's like a very clear gradient to them, which I thought was cool. And I remember the same thing you said earlier when you first arrive and you're like, I have to kill 40 of these? Where do I fucking start?
Yeah.
And then by the end of the game, I was like, oh, there's not that many left.
Yeah.
Oh no, this game's almost over.
Yeah.
There's like 5 left, and you're like, oh shit, I'm in like the last area.
That moment when you're in the last Metro and it's like, here's 10 more. I'm like, oh no!
Yeah, that was cool. But there's some cool end game stuff. Actually, so just earlier today, I was watching, do you know Mark Brown? Game Maker's Toolkit. Yeah. I love his stuff. I follow him on Twitter. He's absolutely a smart fellow. Smart fellow. Love that guy. And he put out a video because he actually played through the original Game Boy Metroid 2. And I'm like, props to him for that.
Yeah.
He had a lot of really interesting points about how there's a lot of tonal stuff in the Game Boy game that isn't really carried over. I think he said like AM2R is a little bit more successful, but that Samus Returns kind of throws away a lot of the you're killing a species sides of the game. That this is space genocide, what you're committing. And I guess at the end of the game, not to kind of vaguely get into spoilers without like specifics. At the end of the original,
if you've played Super Metroid, you know what happens.
In
the first 2 seconds, they tell you
exactly. But so at the very end of Metroid 2, the original Game Boy one, But when you're approaching the final boss, there's no enemies. It's completely empty, and there's like almost no music. You beat the boss. There's that last Metroid that you don't kill, and then it's no enemies on the way out. You just sort of leave with the Metroid, and then that's it. And then I almost called it Metroid Returns again. Samus Returns. There's enemies in the whole lead up to the final boss. It's this big ramp up thing. It doesn't give you this introspection of, oh, I'm killing a species. It's just, oh no, you gotta fight the end boss. And then while you're escaping with that Metroid, there's enemies everywhere, and it's a version of the same music, but it's like super high tempo and energetic. It's not at all the same tone. And then there's another thing at the end of the game that's not just, oh, you leave. There's a little bit more there.
I was hoping the Metroid would be your companion in the sense that it like stuns enemies or like makes them weak.
I did like what they did with it though, that there is like a gameplay, and it was another one of those things where the entire game you're like, how do I do that? And then you get the Metroid and like,
you go, oh,
like
yeah.
that was a cool moment. I don't want to go into super detail on that.
Sure.
But overall, I did think it was interesting that playing through Samus Returns, I was like, oh, cool. Like I get all these beats. They make sense. And then compared to the original kind of shitty looking Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, it's like this game had more going on than I gave it credit for originally. So watch Mark Brown's video. I recommend it.
I would love to revisit. Now that I'm done with the game, I want to go back and play AM2R again. I want to play the original. I want to like see how it all kind of lines up. And again, going back to the importance of Metroid, I hope the game sells well. I hope people support it. I hope that
How long has it been since Zero Mission? Like 12 years or some shit?
12 since Zero Mission, 7 since Other M. So 7 years, a whole console generation. We skipped Wii U, baby. We went straight to we switched.
Well, don't get me started on F-Zero.
Oh, I know. Oh my goodness.
Someday maybe.
Well, again, it goes back to the support. Like,
right.
Then if the numbers
it's hard to support if it doesn't exist, Jirard.
That's true. But, you know, I think it's a matter of showing the companies. I mean, because it's a tough balance, right? Like, look at Sega. Like, I don't really care for the newer 3D Sonic games we've got in the past few years.
Sure.
And
I don't think that's a controversial opinion.
Well, sure. Well, you know, like I'm one of the few guys that love Sonic Adventure series, even though
me too.
They have their flaws.
They're super janky and broken, but I'm very nostalgic for them.
Yes. I love almost every 3D Sonic with the exception of the Storybook series. And
I was not into Sonic Heroes.
Sonic Heroes, I think, was the last game that I thought was okay. In my like, Sonic Generations is great because it's back to basics nostalgia. But
Adventure 2 Battle was the last time before Mania I was like, Sonic's fun.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle is my favorite 3D Sonic game. It's like the one that was like, this is what it is. This is what a Sonic game is.
Right.
Admittedly, I haven't really. I've played a lot of Sonic Unleashed for my Defendant video, and I actually think Sonic Unleashed has a lot of great qualities to it. It's kind of a situation of like, it's got a good half game in it. It's like half of it is pretty decent. The other half, that's I don't know what happened.
I don't know why I take a perverse pleasure in kicking Sonic fans. There's something about like beating a dead horse, I guess. But it's whenever before Mania, it's been a long time since there was like a good Sonic game, like objectively good. Because you can find fun things about literally any of them if you're a Sonic fan. Like it's subjective. But I just always love that Sonic fans point. It's like Sonic Unleashed is great, half of it. And like, this is your franchise that you love and support, and you're like, yeah, the best one that came out recently is only half good. Well, I think maybe pick a better franchise to wave your flag around.
I don't know. To me, I actually like a lot of Unleashed.
I've heard that the normal Sonic stuff is really solid.
I actually also like the Werehog stuff. I think it just depends. Like, to me, the problem with the Werehog stuff isn't the Werehog himself, isn't his moves or his combat. It's the way that these levels were designed, because they designed the Werehog levels to be a lot bigger than the regular Sonic levels are, and so levels end up being 8 to 12 minutes long, as opposed to a Sonic level usually on average is 3 to 5 minutes.
Right, it's like a pop song.
And you're also a slow hedgehog who's beefy, so like, while it's fun to go through and beat dudes up, it's a much slower experience, and so that's where the divide comes. And to me, I think Unleashed is a fine game. I think it's fun. I think to me the worst of the worst, where I had to kind of put my hands up and go, the two Sonic games that I can confidently say I really dislike are Sonic 06 and Sonic Boom. The rest of Sonic games,
fair.
Yeah, and the Storybook series, the Black Knight and
they just
Sonic Arabia. Yeah, those 4 games are in my opinion the ones
what about Sonic 4 Episode 1?
I didn't play it.
No one did.
I didn't play episode 2. I don't.
Let's go back to Metroid.
Right, but the point I was making is Sonic. People still support Sonic.
Yes.
And I have a feeling Sonic Forces is going to be hopefully not going to be the next generation of Sonic games, but
hopefully a fresh start.
Right. But I think that Sonic fans, unlike Metroid fans, are supporting the games. They are buying the Sonic games, whether they're good or bad. Sonic Boom has a fan base. People paid for Sonic Boom. You know, they're showing, and I think that's the strength of Sonic fans, is that they still believe in the blue blur when everyone else shits on them all the time.
Right.
They're there for him. Mario is always going to have those fans. Metroid's important because not only did Metroid establish a very large genre of game, but we haven't seen a Metroid game in years. And so this is going to show Nintendo, hey, we want this. And a lot of people will say, well, you shouldn't have to show a company support to prove you want more of a game. And it's like, well,
right.
They're
not your friend.
But if you don't like a movie franchise and you don't support it, there's not going to be a sequel. If you're obsessed with it and you're like, oh man, I love this so much, I want there to be a sequel, you adamantly you're going to want to see the movie again, pay for it, buy merchandise, show your support, and say, hey, I want to see a sequel to this movie.
So that's actually a really good point, because I wanted to say that, like, I agree and I disagree with you. This is part of the conversation we had earlier in the podcast. Because I think I totally agree that you should encourage companies to produce content that you like, and your dollar is the best way to do that. But I don't think that you should blindly support.
Oh, of course not.
So there's a distinction between buy Samus Returns and play it, and hopefully you'll love it like I did, because I really enjoyed it. Like I love shitting on stuff because it's fun to pick things apart, but it's I think easier to talk about what's fun about it, and it's harder to pick apart something you enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed Samus Returns. I think I got my money's worth out of it, and I only played through it once. I didn't even touch hard mode. I got all the collectibles, and I got that weird secret Chozo thing, which freaked me out.
Yeah.
We have to get into that, but that was unexpected. And I guess leaves it open for a sequel, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love to see an original Metroid game with this sort of engine. I think that could be really good.
Yeah.
With custom controls.
So it's so easy. It's so easy. What do I know? I'm not a game developer, but you know.
The trick is to, when you're coding in the controls, you don't say A button does this. You do the jump button does jump, and then you elsewhere define what the jump button is.
Right.
That's how you do it. You add an extra step.
Hey, Super Metroid has that customization built into it.
They sure do.
The control settings.
25 years old.
There you go. It's in the bread right there.
Yep. It's free publicity for an extra hour and a half of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I think. I don't think it's this weird dilemma that I have, where it's like, on the one hand, I kind of wish that I bought Federation Force just to show Nintendo, please make more Metroid, just don't make this Metroid.
Sure.
But it's also the kind of thing where, like, what if Federation Force was the best-selling Metroid and everyone bought it just to support Metroid, but no one played it? Then Nintendo goes, oh, let's only make games like this.
Yeah.
It's also a waste of your money if you're buying something you don't like.
I mean, hey.
So if you're buying Sonic games just because you love Sonic and you don't love the games, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's your choice. It's your fucking dollar. But I don't think that's why it's like I'm conflicted, because I agree that if we want to see more of something, you need to spend your dollar on it. That's the only thing at the end of the day that's going to get this stuff to happen.
Yeah.
And a game like Metroid will never sell as well as a Mario or a Zelda. That's just the nature of what their genres are. But we can show them that there's a real audience for this. There's a real audience. I mean, they're making Prime 4. They put out Samus Returns. Samus Returns clearly alludes to future stuff that could happen.
Yeah.
For as plot light as it is, which I love Metroid being very light on plot. I love that they give you the window dressing,
Yeah.
and then they give you little details, and then
It's up to you to piece the
it just gives you this little world to inhabit, and I think they do it very well.
Well, let me ask you this then, since we're at that topical essence of like blind support, right? I just did a video recently. I brought back Defend It because Defend It was a series I did a while ago, and the fans through Patreon were like, "We want to see more of it," and so because of them, we're able to make it like a monthly series again.
Nice,
which I'm very grateful for. But one of the game we chose out the gate, which really upset a lot of people, was Final Fantasy 13. Because I'm one of the people out there that actually really likes the game. I love everything about it except the story. And that to me is like such a shitty thing, because like the story should be the reason to play a game. It should be the reason why it's good. An RPG too. An RPG of all the things. You know, I put 114 hours into Final Fantasy 13. A lot of people who bashed me on the video didn't like listen to the whole thing. They just kind of like reached the point where they were like, nope, and turned it off, and that's fine. But I think Square Enix, and this is the thing, the key is listening. Square Enix heard the feedback for 13. They were like, okay, we get it. Final Fantasy 13-2 is going to take everything that was complained about, and we're gonna fix it in the sequel. And the reason why 13, in my opinion, got so much 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, the reason why this existed was because they invested so much money into their engine, and so they were like, we need to make our investment back on the engine to at least go forward to make another game.
Right.
And so 13, not a very solid story. Characters were all over the place, but the combat was super fun. The music was super engaging, and all the RPG element stuff, if you stuck to it, actually ends up coming in full circle towards the end. I couldn't tell you the plot. Like, it's really confusing, and within an hour, you're like...
Has there been a straightforward Final Fantasy plot since the first one?
Since the first one? Final Fantasy 6, I think, is the most easy and consumable plot. It's the Empire, right? Like the Empire's on the rise, and we are the rebellion. It's the Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's the Empire, and we have to handle it. Since 6, 7 to me also makes sense, but I'm also very
to you it makes sense.
I'm a historian on Final Fantasy 7.
Right.
I will admit that
from the outside it looks like bonkers madness.
On the outside, it's madness. 7 in its containedness makes sense. 7 in the we need to sell comic books, movies, and extra games.
The Advent Children side of things.
It kind of stretches everything else out. Although Crisis Core is incredible. Crisis Core is like back to basics almost. But to your point, right? Like that they get more fantastical. With Final Fantasy 15, that was them going, hey, we know with 13 was tough. We're going to kind of redo everything. And I think, but again, they learned a lot. They committed to their mistakes. They really embraced the change of what was 13 to make 15 really great. But once again, for me, the biggest problem was they got ahead of themselves in the story. I love Noctis. I love his bro crew. I love driving around. I love the atmosphere in the world and the characters they interact with. But once again, terminology that doesn't exist. This is the way that it exists. This character shows up. You gotta watch a
movie to get the backstory.
Right. And so, again, they're kind of world building for franchise sake as opposed to just keeping it self-contained.
Like making a good game that you can just experience.
Right. But if you, again, going back to 13, which we'll then move on, the point of it is that the franchise got the support it needed because the game at the core of it was fun. The Final Fantasy 13 is fun. But you look at the story and it dilutes the fun. It makes you hate playing the game. It makes you feel like you're out of control. And so the sales numbers, the reviews, everyone said the game was fun. It was the most innovative 13 game in a while. It's not saying a lot considering that Final Fantasy 12 was the last one and there was a long time between the release of 12 and 13.
Right.
Different engines, different stories, different directors, different
platforms, right?
Different platforms. It jumped generations twice almost. And so creates all this controversy. And so in that case, how do you support a company like Square where you're going, I want to support the next Final Fantasy. 13.3 is like, I can't talk about it. It like makes me visibly and audibly upset because it's so different than what 13, 1 and 2 were. and it also just doesn't feel like it was the right thing. It was the Versace sellout of it, like the minute you saw 13 or Lightning have Versace brand deals, you're like, I'm out. Like, this is just too much. So I guess this is the balance of it all. How do you support a company who you want to keep making franchises and you want them to keep growing and you want them to keep bringing back Mario and Sonic and Zelda and Final Fantasy and embrace that nostalgia of what the fans love and hope in that crapshoot that your money is going to make the franchise better and more games and create more stuff.
Right.
Like, it's such a hard thing to tell. And I think, like, some people have it right. Like, the Persona fans are like so stoked because Personas just get better and better. And where they don't get better, people are like, but we have this Persona still, so we're all good.
Right.
And so there has to be a middle ground where we as a community can go, we want to support this game, but how do we avoid that blind fatigue? How do we, it's so hard. It's like
I think
it's a bubble that we can't figure out.
Yeah. I think the answer is to, if you're, willing and able to make that purchase and join the conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest danger is criticizing something sight unseen, like people shitting on Federation Force just because of it existing.
Yeah.
And granted, I was one of those people who was upset. I might have been a little bit upset publicly. I don't want to say like I wasn't upset publicly. It's like, I might have been. I don't remember. But at the very least, when there's something like that, I guess the big frustration with Federation Force was it was the first Metroid in so long, and you gotta kind of look at Nintendo and be like, what were you guys thinking when it's like, if that came out a year from now after Samus Returns, there would still probably be backlash, but less so, because it's like, well, we did just get a new Metroid.
I guess it's the essence of it's the game that no one asked for.
It's a game that no one asked for. It's a spin-off. It's something unique and different. Doesn't really fit the current vision of that franchise, of that brand. And on top of that, it's been like 10 years since we got a Metroid game. So it's like if we finally get a new Mother game and it's a kart racer,
or a card game,
or just like there's so many. We finally get a new F-Zero, and it's a Mario Party clone, and it's just like, you'd be like, no one asked for this. Why is this happening? And even if it was a good game, no one would give it the time of day because of the context that it came out in.
Were you watching when they announced you were watching the Nintendo press conference, right? When everything was happening, when they were like, when the Direct was happening for E3 this year?
Yeah.
Was it strange to you that they announced Samus Returns after they had their press conference?
Very strange. Like, especially considering it just came out and it's like, E3 was yesterday. Why?
Yeah, they were like
by the way,
they were low key. They were like, oh, and here's.
Do they want it to fail? I don't understand.
It was so confusing to me. I was so confused because, especially because I've always wanted to play Metroid 2 in a more updated finesse.
It's something I never knew I wanted. Frankly.
And the fact that they were like, so here, welcome to E3. Here's our Nintendo Treehouse. Here's a couple of games you talked about. Oh, and now we're going to bring in some of the devs who worked on Metroid Samus Returns. It's a new Metroid game coming out. And
here's some gameplay.
And everyone in the world was like about to turn off their TV. And they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And they get back. And that to me may attribute us to why. I don't know if Metroid Returns is selling well, but
it only just came out like a week ago.
So it's hard to say, but I'd like to know what that impression translation was.
Well,
I hope so too. It was a lot of fun.
I think probably either way, Prime 4 will probably sell pretty good as long as it shapes up and looks decent.
Yeah,
because I was never a huge fan of the pointer controls on Metroid Prime 3.
Yeah,
I thought there was some interesting stuff, but overall, it's like I don't want to do that again.
Just let the player decide how they want to play the game.
Right. But it's like with the Switch, it's gonna have minimal motion waggle. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see stuff soon. But yeah, absolutely with E3, my impulse was. Like, I went through almost like the 5 stages of grief in like a split second. I was just like I was bewildered. I was in denial. I became angry. Cause I remember getting a lot of backlash on Twitter because I was watching that gameplay demo and they went to the first Chozo statue. When you enter that room, the camera slowly pans over to the Chozo statue and then it pans back to Samus and then it zooms out like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't fucking need that in Metroid. And I was really scared that this game was going to be super handholdy and super like, oh, there's a Chozo statue. Samus, you have to shoot it with your beam to get the... It's like, just make Metroid. We got it. We played Super Metroid. We know how this shit works.
It lasted for about 2 seconds in the starting game. Thank God.
The starting game, it happens once and then never again. And it's like there's like little cutscenes when you get the new Aeon abilities, but for the most part, it is relatively hands off. There aren't big strings of dialogue explaining how things work. You get a little snippet of text that says, "Oh, by the way, grapple beam automatically changes when you lock on."
Which apparently I ignored.
Right, because you're a Metroid player. We don't need that shit.
Yeah.
But I was like terrified. I was like, don't you? And I was like tweeting like, they fucking zoomed in on the Chozo statue. I can't believe it. And everyone's like, dude, calm down. We're getting a new Metroid game. And it's like, yeah, but they're fucking it up. And I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad it was just the one time. But I had some weird like emotional whiplash going on because it just came out of nowhere. It could have been the 10th pull of their E3 presentation, like Mario Odyssey, super wow, like we can't wait, exciting. By the way, there's a new Metroid coming out in like 3 fucking months. Like, that would have blown my pants off. And for them to low-key be like, so here we are with Yoshiyuma-san or whatever his name is, Metroid guy, and we're going to play Metroid 2. And it's like, what? And I think they gave Prime 4 like a little splash screen during the conference.
That's all it was. It was just a logo.
In development.
I remember Jimmy Sunder, like, every year... He's the guy who's like, he's the guy in the back who's like, bring back Metroid. What about Metroid? What about Metroid? And so, like, I remember.
Where's Mother 3?
I know, right? Bring back Mother 3 Mother 3 to America.
Yeah.
I just
seriously, Nintendo, you should.
Come on. Clyde did it for you. Clyde,
right? They're offering it.
Just take Clyde's ROM. He will. He's
already said he would.
He did the work. Just give him a credit in the beginning. That's all.
I will buy it 20 times. Well, I'll buy it twice.
I'll buy it on every platform.
If you put it out on Switch and 3DS, I'll buy it on both.
Yes. I'll buy it on the Wii U. Fuck it. Let's go. I'll boot it up.
If they put it out, it's only on the Wii U. I'll be like, all right, taking my Wii U out of the box.
All right, there we go.
All right, there we go.
Now, the Wii U is my mother machine. Mother 1, 2, and 3 on Wii U. Let's go.
Oh, my God. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I remember Jimmy just was like, bring back Metroid. And it finally was like Metroid 4. And it was like, oh, thank God. Yay. And then like 20 minutes later, and I think he tweeted... And I'm sure everyone out there will go look at the tweet. It's a video of him like recording himself, like walking up to the screen, watching, and he's like, "Fuck!" like yelling full voice.
That makes me happy.
So I'm glad Metroid's back. I hope it stays. I hope the genre stays.
And you know what's fascinating to me is looking. If you go to a franchise page on Wikipedia, they give you these little timelines where they'll have every release in order of its release. And then they'll have like a light green square if it was a year that didn't have anything, and a dark green square if it did have a release. And you can see like a franchise like Zelda, where it's like, oh yeah, like we used to have to wait like several years, and then like around the GameCube era was like still waiting a bit. Then the Wii era was like, oh, you're getting all these spin-offs and like crazy shit. Now there's like a Zelda every year, and like and then it kind of slowed down a bit. And then you look at Metroid, and it's like bursts of interest in Metroid. Like around the early 90s, you had Metroid 2 and you had Super Metroid. Then nothing until Metroid Prime. Nothing in the N64. She was in Smash Bros. That was it.
Yeah.
Then we get Metroid Prime and Fusion the same day, which is bonkers. Who approved that decision? And then you get Zero Mission.
And they interact together for that matter.
Right, which is just like, how did this happen? After like a 10-year drought of no Metroid. And then you have the Prime trilogy, you have Other M, and then nothing. And it's just like you have these bursts of Nintendo trying it out and then just getting it wrong and then giving it up. It's not a Zelda that can weather, or like a Mario, like these big tentpole franchises that can weather the occasional misfire. Yeah. Where it's like, even if people weren't into Skyward Sword, they're right back there for the next one. With something like Metroid, because it's an underperforming series compared to those franchises, it seems like they're more like, oh, we stepped on attack, time to just kill it all, put it in the bunker, into the vault, and no one can touch it again.
But that's fascinating to think about, because Skyward Sword sold. Like, people bought Skyward Sword.
And it required the extra Wiimote, too.
And people bought that to go with it. Yep. And it sold...
That's the power of Zelda.
It sold the experience, but when the Wii U came out, we had things like, oh, Wind Waker came back, Wind Waker sold really well, Twilight Princess sold very well. It reminded why it like fixed everything that was wrong with the original Twilight Princess ports or port for the Wii. And now Breath of the Wild comes out and the world wept. Like everyone universally was like,
and Jesus wept.
And in between that, we had remakes of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, we had Link Between Worlds,
lots of
Triforce Heroes, Triforce, the costume one. That was
Triforce Heroes.
Sorry, I meant Hyrule Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
Hyrule Warriors,
yeah.
which was a fun time. It was crazy, but it was fun.
Right. But it was a long time between like actual big real Zelda games.
Yes, it was.
But they found ways to keep people interested. I mean, I shouldn't say Link Between Worlds isn't a big real Zelda game because that's probably one of my favorite Zelda games.
Oh,
that game is amazing.
As someone who thinks that Link to the Past is the best Zelda game, I go back and forth every day with whether I think Link Between Worlds is better or not.
It's fucking great.
Yeah, it's so good.
I'll have to go back and replay that someday.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Metroid reach that kind of a status where we do get the occasional misstep in Federation Force, Other M, whatever. But then a couple years later, we get the new one and we're all happy again. Like, it's a series, and I think the fact that it has spawned an entire genre. Originally, I wasn't sure if we were just going to talk about Samus Returns or just Metroidvanias in general. Clearly went more towards the former, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
But it spawned the Metroidvania genre.
We should definitely label the podcast more Metroid-based than Metroidvania.
Yeah. But just like to kind of end this conversation with a brief topic talking about Metroidvania real quick. I'm partially convinced the only reason it's called Metroidvania is because calling it a Metroid clone or a Metroid-like is just more unwieldy. Because I have not played any of the Castlevania, Metroidvania games. The only Castlevanias I've played are like the old school ones on the NES, and a little bit of the Super Nintendo one. So I'm not as familiar with like what they did to change the formula, but having played multiple indie games that are labeled as Metroidvanias, I think I have a pretty good idea of the sort of tentpoles of that formula of getting additional abilities that let you explore this open environment in different ways. And different indie games have put their own different spins on them. Like Hollow Knight is very much a Metroid type game. You very clearly have walls you cannot progress through. They're not the same as, oh, there's a door that's colored red. It's more environmental stuff. Or, oh, now you got a double jump, so now you can get to this ledge you couldn't before. But it becomes this very mostly organic feeling of exploring this bigger and bigger space. And it helps that it's gorgeous, and the music is incredible, and the combat's fun. I've been playing a lot of SteamWorld Dig 2.
SteamWorld Dig 2 is so good.
Fucking great.
It's so good.
And it's definitely a Metroidvania, despite being very, very different than those other ones. It's not this giant... I was going to say it's not a giant grid-like maze. It is a giant grid-like maze. But it doesn't... It's not these open areas. You're digging your way through, and it becomes this almost clicker game type loop where you're getting money to then spend on upgrades to get better at getting like upgrade money. Like it's this loop that just digs you deeper and deeper into the world, but you're getting upgrades and abilities that let you explore different parts of the map. And it has this like linear narrative trappings on top of it to sort of push you in the right directions. And those games are fucking great. And I really, it's a genre that I think works really well because it appeals to this basic instinct of improving as a player. Yeah. In a way that's much more tangible than the RPG side of games where it's numbers. It's a numbers game in a lot of RPGs of you might get a sense of progression when you go back to an early part of the game and now, oh, these enemies that are giving me trouble, I can now just stomp on them. But it's not your skill as a player that's making you better at the game. It's you've played it a long time. You might have a better understanding of its systems and strengths and weaknesses, whatever that game has going on. But in terms of the raw ability to navigate the space, it's the exact same at the beginning as it is at the end. Yeah. In a Metroidvania, that's not the case. You're actually gaining new abilities, and when it's done right, it gives you all these options in combat and exploration. Besides just letting you unlock the correct colored door to get to the next area, it gives you this real sense of I am getting stronger, I'm getting more powerful, and that's just a good feeling.
You're getting wiser,
It's just a very, it's like the really dumbed down version of that is the new Doom, which is like you just get better and better guns to get better at killing things. Yeah. Like, it's not locking doors the same way, but it's just that very real power fantasy, just done in a slightly more elegant way, a slightly nicer little put a little doily on top of your console.
Have you played Axiom Verge?
No, I need
Axiom
to.
Verge,
I've had it in my wish list forever.
It's coming to Switch in a couple of weeks. You definitely should pick it up.
Okay.
I've
never played that. I've never played Ori and the Blind Forest. There's a couple modern Metroidvanias that I need to jump onto.
Yeah, I highly recommend Axiom Verge. It's a lot more in the Metroid side based on the atmosphere, but if you like desolate, empty atmosphere,
I sure do.
Axiom Verge is the one.
I love the aesthetic of that game, having seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's made by one gentleman. He put his heart and soul into it, and it's like
that blows me away.
It was like a 5-year commitment. I highly recommend it.
It's literally been in my Steam wishlist for years, and I get emails every time it's on sale, and I'm like, I'm juggling like 10 games right now. I want to play it. I just don't have time for it right now. I actually started a couple weeks ago a note document in my phone, and I break down all the games I want to play and all the games I'm currently playing. And I've tried to restrict myself to not starting a new game until I knock one off the list.
Yo, man.
Holy shit. And it's worked. I've actually finished games that I've been sitting on because I'm like, no, I want to start Mario and Rabbids, and I haven't had time because
Mario Rabbids is so fun.
It's great. I'm enjoying it. And like SteamWorld Dig 2 is another one like I bumped on the list because I finished Thumper. I beat Thumper finally. I finished Doom from last year finally.
Yeah.
There's a couple other, and it's just like I have a terrible habit of just like buying every new game that I want to play and then just not having time for them. So yeah, Axiom Verge on the list. Hopefully soon. And Ori the Blind Forest, I watched the opening cutscene and like bawled my eyes out. I was like,
Ori 2's on the way.
Fuck. Can't keep up, dude.
Yeah,
and Hollow Knight has all those free updates coming out.
Yeah.
God damn, this is too much.
Yo, man. It's, 2017, I know that's like, everyone's always like, man, this is the best year of gaming. This genuinely, 2017.
It's a good fucking year.
Incredible year. We have Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, a new Mario and a new Zelda the same year.
That's you had Sonic Mania and Metroid Samus Returns. You had Resident Evil 7. You've got...
Oh my God, that was this year.
SteamWorld Dig 2. You've got Mario plus Rabbids. Like...
Splatoon
2. Mario Kart DX. Like... ARMS...
It's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, like I'm just saying the Nintendo franchises that I know well, but like this year, from an indie standpoint, from a AAA standpoint, from a first party standpoint, the games have been on point across the board.
Every month there's been at least one release from like fuck.
Yeah, every month there's been a tentpole. Cuphead comes out.
Yeah,
Cuphead's almost here.
Finally,
it probably is here by the time this airs. Like
I think this might go out tomorrow. So.
Oh, in that case. Almost here, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit coming out at the end of the year too.
Hat in Time. Hat in Time is next week.
Next
week. 8 days from the day we're recording this.
That Kickstarter was like in the 1920s. That Kickstarter started when Cuphead takes place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's coming out. We had Yooka-Laylee early this year. Like so many games.
Jesus.
So many games.
Feels good.
It feels great.
It's why am I an adult right now? Why can't I just be a kid?
So yeah,
so I'd have all time and no money.
Yeah.
Now I have money and no time.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Fuck this hobby. Why can't I just be in the movies and just spend 2 hours and done?
Show up, do my job, and go play games.
Yeah. Jirard, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you have any final thoughts about Samus Returns?
Oh man, if you like Metroid games, you'll like Samus Returns.
What if you've never played a Metroid game? Think it's a good place to start?
If you're looking for like the lore of Metroid, or you're trying to find more story out of it, which to me, Metroid's not really a lore-based game so much. You're not going to find much here. I think.
Yeah, if you're looking for like a mystery to unravel, then don't look at Metroid.
Yeah. It's not about the story. It's about the atmosphere that paints the story.
They give you enough story to say go.
Yes.
I think Super Metroid probably does it best with just like
Super Metroid,
because that opening
has a good prologue, set the pace. Like, you see Samus at like an all-time high of like, I'm a good bounty hunter. I did a good thing.
In Samus Returns, there's no escape sequences, are there?
Not particularly, no.
I guess there's some chase sequences.
There's a couple of chase sequences, yeah.
But that's different.
I think overall, if you like Metroid games, you like Metroidvania, you like the Castlevania Symphony of the Knights of the World, you'll like this game. I think give it a chance. Support Metroid as best you can. Hopefully Hopefully my ramblings today didn't upset too many people.
I think it's a game worth supporting. I had a lot of fun. Definitely, as I said, like beat it in 11 hours, and that was a 100% run on normal.
Yeah.
And I don't get 11 hours of fun out of most games that I play. I'll play it for a couple hours and be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Samus Returns fully. Yeah, there's definitely like a couple weird little things about it, but that's mostly in the context of compared to other Metroid games. Not even other Metroidvanias, specifically Metroid. Because every Metroidvania has its own kind of spin on navigation, on combat, etc. But yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was probably the prettiest game I've ever played on the 3DS.
Yeah, the background definitely is mesmerizing. There are a lot of moments where
I played it mostly in 3D with the stereoscopic 3D on.
Wow.
Which there's only a couple games that I really would like recommend the 3D for.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. Like there's a lot of depth to the background. There's way more to it than previous Metroids where it'd be like maybe an animated sprite, but probably just some rocks.
Yeah. This
is like, no, there's like a whole thing going on in the background with like crab robots breaking rocks or something.
Yeah.
Like, there's some cool little stuff back there. And yeah, I think it's a good game, and hopefully Prime 4 is good, and hopefully we get another 2D Metroid before too long.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's go. I'm always in.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
And I need to play Axiom Verge.
Axiom Verge. Everyone should play Axiom Verge. It's a great game. Plus, like...
Well, now I might wait for it to come out on Switch.
I think the reason why I love Axiom Verge so much is because I know that the money I'm spending is going to a good man who made a good game.
Yeah.
Like, I think that to me, like...
That's a good feeling.
I know, it's weird to say, but like I think that's why I love indie games so much. Like, I know that like Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac goes to Edmund, who made a great game.
And Tommy,
yeah, of course. And
just Meat Boy, not Isaac.
Yeah. Like, Shovel Knight, like, Yacht Club Games, great people who make great games.
Guys.
I'm so happy that, like, I will buy Shovel Knight for friends to give out.
I will buy it on every console they port. I have literally bought that game 3 times.
I have bought it on every console except the Vita because I couldn't find a physical of it, and then they gave me a copy of it on Vita. So I literally own Shovel Knight on every platform possible, and I'm so okay with that.
I mean, we've gotten to announce all of their amiibo, which has been a particular delight.
Yeah.
So we're all big fans of Yacht Club. But that's kind of what I love about existing in this weird pocket of the industry, the like YouTube side of things, because we don't really deal with the same stresses a lot of those guys do. We just kind of get to hang out next to them.
Yeah.
And like I get to go to a PAX and meet a bunch of developers and see the cool shit they're working on and go, cool. And then when I get to buy it and play it, I'm like, neat.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying. That's just like it's like a double recommendation. It's like the game is good and the people that made it are fucking sweet.
And their passion is palpable.
Yeah.
Like you meet look, if you go to a PAX and you see the Yacht Club booth there and you talk to anyone at the Yacht Club booth, you cannot tell me that they are stoked to like about Shovel Knight or anything they're working on. You get that vibe of they love games and they're happy to bring their game to you, and that's like the whole thing. That's like the whole thing of games, right? When we were kids, you like when I had Donkey Kong 64, I like grabbed my cart, went to my friend's house, and was like, "This fucking game is the coolest thing ever." It's sharing your passion of your hobby, and I think that's what makes this all so fun. The reason why this cast exists, you know, the passion of loving a game and being able to talk about it is so important.
Right. At the end of the day, I love games. I just also love breaking them apart into little pieces.
But I think that's the whole point. You have to break it up so then you can.
You don't have to. Just I to me, it's not satisfying enough to just like play it and just walk away. Like for me, that's mostly movies. Like I like to pick apart movies.
If I was a film YouTuber, I would have the biggest hate train on me, because like if my optimism for gaming is why everyone watches me, people would hate me for my movie opinions.
Are you a pessimist when it comes to movies?
Yeah, I'm pretty. Oof. I mean, if it's AAA stuff or the big AAA, all the big movie stuff, I like it. But like if it's a movie that's a classic, I'm like, we need to have a talk.
Get out of here with that Gone with the Wind shit.
Oh man,
it's fucking garbage.
Don't even get me started on Citizen Kane. I
like Citizen Kane.
I like Citizen Kane too, but like different podcast.
So let's do a Citizen Kane podcast. I'd be so down. I'd have to watch it again. It's been a while. Jirard, thank you so much for coming on. Plug your shit. Where can people find you?
If you guys could actually stand my opinions for this whole duration, and if you want to know more about me, you can check me out on youtube.com/thatonevideogamer. On Twitter, I'm JK Completes It, and if that's at all confusing for you, you can just search The Completionist, and you'll see my dumb bearded fat face there. So
you have a lovely face, Jirard.
Thanks, man.
I've been looking at it all day, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I've been looking at your face. It's been fun the whole time.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
I'm Barry. I'm at Razadoop on Twitter, and that's about that.
What is Razadoop? I've never asked you.
So a username that I used to use back in the day was Raspberry, my name, and then Razz. Because I was a very clever 14-year-old. And I was making a profile to play a friend's Xbox. We were playing Halo co-op, and like it made you like create a profile. And I just came up with Razadoop because it just was funny. It's nonsense, but it's just like a riff on that old name.
Sure.
And then when I went to make a Twitter, Raspberry was taken, so I used Razadoop, and then I got a lot of followers on that account. So now it's like followed me around, and it's just like I like it because it doesn't mean anything. It's fun to say. So. Works for me. For knowing you though, I also like Raspberry.
Yeah? Yeah. It's like a retro fit for you.
Maybe I'll bring it back. Except every time I try to make a profile on a new like website or something, it's always taken. Yeah. Everything I've ever used is taken.
But Razadoop isn't? I imagine
if I get in there fast. But like on the Wii U, on Miiverse, I was Putazar, which is Razadoop backwards. Because that was taken. And then people being like, oh, I just played Splatoon with you. I'm like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Sorry, pal.
Didn't. Sorry to let you down. So don't take my name, people.
Don't do it.
It's mine.
Yeah.
You come up with your own silly name that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Or, hey, if you're going to do a Barry impression, you better be doing it good.
Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.